Hey everybody, this is Mike here at Hillbilly Stills. Today I want to demonstrate for you how to use our what we call beer wine hydrometer. I mean, basically what you make, whether you realize it or not, they call distiller's beer. And I have a lot of customers I found out that don't really know how to use this. So I'm going to show you today, and hopefully this will zoom in. See, got your percentages over here, and that's possible. That don't mean you're going to get it every time. And then there's your specific gravity numbers. Now when you start with your wash, this will float up in this range, which is normally between 10 to 15%. And when it's finished, it'll sink. It'll be at 990. That's 0.990. Okay, so I'm going to show you now best way to mix up your wash. First off, we've been lucky here in Kentucky. I've got good hot water, good water. It's nice and clean. We don't have hardly any chlorine at all in it. I guess none, because the yeast works really well. So first thing you do, get your water hot. I'm just going to use a gallon pitcher here. These buckets are 6 gallon. But I usually don't go above 25 liters in here, and that's about 5 gallons. Maybe a little bit more than 5 gallons. But just simply because that way you got room in here for your wash to foam and bubble. And we're going to use turbo yeast today. And with turbo yeast, I don't recommend putting a lid on it, because sometimes it works so hard the first couple of days. If something were to happen, your airlock get plugged up, it'll blow your airlock out and make you a mess. So best thing to do is keep it open topped. You might want to throw a towel over it. Takes a few minutes to fill this up. We're in the kitchen here at our shop here at Hillbilly Stills. This is our break room area where everybody comes to take breaks. We have our safety meetings, staff meetings. We meet with customers in here sometimes, normally in mine or Matt's office, but sometimes we meet in here. Depends on how many of us there are. Our employees come in here and eat their lunch. We've got a stove and refrigerator and a microwave, so kind of got the conveniences here good for them. Good for all of us, not just for them. I use it also. Got my buddy Howard in here with me today. He's usually over here at the office anytime I'm here. I'll get you a picture of him here in just a minute. Like I say, you don't have to have scalding hot water. It needs to be hot enough to melt your sugar. And so that's what we're doing today. Come here, Howard. Come here. Come here. Get your picture up here. Come on, buddy. They want to see you. He's just looking up at me. I'll get him for you here in a minute. Just me and him over here today, so. Get up here. If I had food on this counter, you better believe he would be jumping up here. Of course, another important thing is you want to make sure that your water is also below 90 degrees before you put your yeast in, because if your water's over 90 degrees, the yeast will die. It won't start. But if your water's about 80 degrees, it'll start working pretty quick. So there's kind of a fine line there. If your water temperature drops below 70, it's going to almost stop working. It's really going to slow down. So you like to try to keep your water in the 80 degree range, right as close to 80 as you can, seems to work the best. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll take my sugar And we'll dump it in here and then stir it up. Make sure it's all dissolved really well. And normally for 5 gallons, I only put about 12 pounds of sugar in there with the turbo yeast. It says for 6 gallons, I think it says put 16 pounds in it, but I found if you do 5 gallons or 12 pounds, the yeast seems to work better. It doesn't really stress it. You get a lot of sugar in there when it starts to get finished. Of course, your alcohol content gets really high and it's harder for the yeast to work. And that's another thing. A lot of times I'll have customers call and they'll say, man, it bubbled really hard the first day and then it quit bubbling. Well, probably it didn't completely stop bubbling. It just slowed way down, which is normal. First 24 hours, man, this stuff will work. It'll bubble so hard you can't believe it. And then it'll kind of, you may think it has quit working, but it'll be rolling really slow. And the best way to tell when it's finished is with your hydrometer, which is what I'm going to show you. First thing I got to do is get something to stir this up with. And our long handle plastic spoons work best. I just didn't think to bring one up here from the warehouse before it came. I mean, anything will work, but I like the long handles better because you can get up here and you don't get all wet and sticky. The main thing is make sure this is all mixed up really good and that all your sugar is dissolved. Because any sugar that does not dissolve, you won't make alcohol with it. Your sugar has to be liquefied. And if you're wanting to put grain in at this point, I'll go ahead and stir my grain in too. And I mean, in this situation, you're just using grain for a little flavor. And if you use cracked corn or put some rye or some malted barley in there with it, or you might want to use some other grains also. Sweet feed's good. But you'd add it in here right now and stir it up real good. And that hot water will kind of break the grains down some and help you get a good flavor in here. So we've got this, it's stirred up really good. Looks like all of our sugar's dissolved. So now I'm going to add some cool water to it to cool it down. Like I say, a lot of times I would just let it sit and cool by itself, but just for this video, for the purposes, I'm going to go ahead and put cool water in there and get it cool enough to put we'll check the specific gravity and then we'll put the yeast in it. And the yeast I'm using today is some turbo yeast. We got a 50-pound bag in the warehouse that had broken open, so I got some in a baggie that I'm going to use for that. About one more pitcher of cool water will probably do it. I should have brought a stick-on thermometer or a floating thermometer, either one. That's the best way to tell what your temperature is and to know for sure that it's below 90. The reason why I'm pretty sure our hot water heater is only set on 90, so I know when I put this cool water in it that I know it'll be below 90 degrees that way. Alright, that's just right. That's the way I like it. Leave a couple inches in the top so it's got room to, it'll sometimes foam up, bubble up some, and that way it doesn't run out all over the place, because I've gotten in trouble with my wife from doing that before. So now we're going to take our hydrometer, and I may have to get the camera to bring over here to show you a little better what we're doing here. Okay. I'm going to set my hydrometer in here. We'll let it float for a minute. It's at 2.0, if you can see that. That is 2.0 with a specific gravity of 1.08, which shows a potential of, well, it's almost 1.09. Potential of about 11% alcohol, okay? Now I could put more sugar in there and get a higher alcohol content, but all my sugar may not be dissolved yet. So I may need to stir that up some more, and we'll see if that hydrometer comes up any, if the specific gravity comes up. If it's not dissolved, it won't read it. And the way this works is your sugar adds specific gravity to your water, and so it's kind of like the sugar makes it float, makes your hydrometer float. As that sugar is eaten up and turned to alcohol, alcohol is a lot lighter. It doesn't have near the floating capabilities, so your hydrometer sinks. And that's just kind of layman's terms, which is what I like to use. So that gives you a little better idea maybe of how this all works. All right, we got that all stirred up. Also, another thing that I forgot to mention, and your hydrometer, they're calculated at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So if there's a formula to recalculate for this, and there's instructions in every hydrometer that shows you how to do that. I also have a calculation chart I've been going to put on the website to where it will calculate it for you. If you put in a temperature and a specific gravity, it will give you the correct reading on your hydrometer. So I'm going to put that back in there. Oh yeah, it's a lot higher now. See, I didn't have it stirred up real well. So now you can see that, of course, it's spinning where I've stirred it, but you can see it's pretty clear now too. You can see to the bottom of the bucket. It was a little cloudy just a moment ago, so I didn't have it mixed up good. But I do now, and the hydrometer is floating at 24 on this scale, but you come around here, it's 14%. That's about right. You know, the yeast will work up to 20%, 18%, but it slows way down that last 4%. You can get 14% pretty quick with it. So we've got our specific gravity, which is possible 14%. We've got our sugar in here and our water. So this came out of a 50-pound bag. I'm just going to guess. You can't really get too much in it, but you cannot get enough because the turbo yeast has nutrients and everything in it to feed the yeast to ferment the sugars. So there was about 10 ounces in there. I just went ahead and put it all in. Now, you can either stir it or you can just let it set. You know, a lot of people do it. Some people say if you stir it, the yeast doesn't work as well. I like to stir it, and when I stir it, I like to kind of get some air in the water, because the more oxygen in the water, the better it does. So let me show you how to do that. First, I get all my yeast stirred in on the top so that it's not floating. And then I just kind of stir it enough to give it some turbulence so it sucks air down in it. You can probably hear that. See if I can get the camera up here so you can see it. Of course, you get foam on top and stuff. That's good. That's putting oxygen in the water. Now, normally I do this in a sink because this sugar water gets out on the floor. It makes one hell of a mess. And you can do that for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. This will be enough oxygen in there to make it work. We're going to go with that. And I'll come back in a couple of days and I'll show you the results of this. This is Sunday, the 17th of May. So I'll probably come back to you on the 19th and we'll do a specific gravity test and we'll see where we're at.